you fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar, the fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Our God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report this Thursday, August 31st, 2017, 8th year of Chungi, 7th month, 10th day. By the heavenly calendar, I'm your host, Hyung Sean Moon, second king of Cheongguk. Let's go first to Tim, the agent elder, for our AccuWeather forecast. Tim.
Good morning. It's a cool 54 degrees at the Cheongguk right now. It's clear skies as we await the rising of the sun in about an hour. And it's going to get up to 75 degrees today. We'll have periods of clouds and sunshine throughout the day, and possibility of a shower around 5 o'clock or so. And we're going into a cool spell again. It's going to get down to 44 tonight. And
Wow.
the high tomorrow will be 66, quite a bit below our normal for this time of year. And
Ooh, that's fantabulous.
and
oh my gosh, that's so
we'll repeat it on the Saturday, 67 for a
oh
high
my
on
gosh.
Saturday.
Praise Jesus. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
And we'll
Wow. Thank you, God.
finally get up into the low 70s on Sunday, still several degrees cooler than the historical average for this time of
Oh
year.
my goodness. Praise Jesus. Thank you, God. Oh my Lord, that is so amazing. Oh, it's so nice to have this cooler, refreshing weather. You said 1 hour until the rising of the sun. What's that song? One day in the year of the foxsmith. Is that called the rising sun? Guys, look up.
From the rising of the sun to the setting of the same.
No, there's a song called, I think, the rising sun.
the rising sun.
One day in the year of the fox came a time remembered way, when the strong young man of the rising sun, of the great big bell, something like that. What is that called? What was that song? Oh, such an old
look it
song.
up.
What was that song again? It's called the Rising Sun. Is it called the Rising Sun?
Temple of the King.
Temple of the King.
Is that it?
Yeah, the Temple of the King. Oh my goodness, yeah, go play that song, Temple of the King.
One day in the year of the fox came a time remembered well, when the strong young men of the rising sun heard the tolling of the great black
Totally
bell.
The great black bell. Okay.
Yes.
One
that's
day in the year of the fox, and what does it go? What's the second verse?
Came a time remembered well. The second verse, one day in the rising of the sun, when the bell began to ring,
Oh, okay.
meant the time had cometh for one to go to the temple of the King.
Of the King.
There in the middle of the circle he
There.
stands, searching, seeking, with just one touch of his trembling hand, the answer will be found.
Wow, that's such a holy, man. I used to sing that. Oh my goodness, I used to sing that in the they had a karaoke machine
Oh yeah.
in the East Garden, and that used to be one of the songs. Go ahead, play that song. You guys have that? Oh man, it's been so long since I heard that song. You said the rising of the sun, and all of a sudden just a boom, and like a flash flood memory of that song. My gosh, it's called the Temple of the King.
Yes. Rainbow, I guess, is the
Go
name
ahead.
of the group.
Go ahead, play that.
One day in the year of the fox came a time remembered
A little louder, here you go. Turn that up.
strong young man of the rising sun heard the tolling of the great black bell. One day in the year of the fox when the bell
They'll begin to ring.
meant the time had
Come
come for one to go
to the temple of the King.
There in the middle of the circle he stands,
There in the middle of the
searching, seeking.
searching.
With just one touch of his trembling
Just
hand.
one touch of him. Yes, will be found.
Daylight waits while the old man sings.
Daylight waits while the old man sings. Turn it up, turn it up. I can't hear that. The rouse and the wings to shine. It has just begun. That's all, but keep going, keep going. One day in the year the fox came, a time remembered when the strong young man of the rising sun heard the great black bay. One day in the year of the fox, when the hill began to sing, time had come for the one to go to the temple of the King. There in the middle of a circle, he began to sing, just one
Strong right hand, he's gone to the temple of the
to
King.
the temple of the King.
Far from the circle at the edge of
You
the
got a Buddhist
world.
temple. Why they got Java there, man? Why they got a Buddhist temple there in the picture of it?
Far from the circle at the edge of the world.
That's Cambodia, by the way.
Yes.
Do do do. Do 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 do. That's an oldie but goodie, man. That was like in the, what was that? When was that? When was that? That was like,
Released in 75.
that's Cook Jung's era, you know? But I heard that so much because it was on that karaoke machine. And my elder brothers used to sing that song a lot. I ended up really liking that song. Called The Temple of the King.
Yes.
Very interesting. Well, you said Rising Sun, and that got us into this whole mess. Alrighty, folks. Let's get to our reading this morning. And we are in Leviticus 22 and verse 3. Give them the following instructions, God said. In all future generations, if any of your descendants is ceremonially unclean, when he approaches the sacred offerings that the people of Israel consecrate to the Lord, he must be cut off from my presence. I am the Lord. If any of Aaron's descendants has a skin disease or any kind of discharge that makes him ceremonially unclean, he may not eat from the sacred offerings until he has been pronounced clean. He also becomes unclean by touching a corpse, by having an emission of semen, or by touching a small animal that is unclean, or by touching someone who is ceremonially unclean for any reason. The man who is defiled in any of these ways will remain unclean until evening. He may not eat from the sacred offerings until he had bathed himself in water. When the sun goes down, he will be ceremonially clean again and may eat from the sacred offerings, for this is his food. He may not eat an animal that has died of natural death or has been torn apart by wild animals, for this would defile him. I am the Lord. Now, we look at these ceremonies, these kind of instructions, and see them as very wacky and very ritualistic. But, God's commandments serve both a practical and spiritual standpoint. From a spiritual standpoint, if you're offering something to the King of Kings, you're not supposed to be touching, dead animals and masturbating before you do it. Okay. There's a sign of deep respect and reverence when you offer something to the King of Kings. Okay, so that's obviously spiritual, but physically too. It is very. We're so detached in the modern world from the natural surroundings, and people don't understand things like bacteria and viruses that are carried on animals that are torn apart, dead, etc. And then you just go touch them. You can actually carry that virus and bacteria. Also, things like having wounds and skin diseases. Remember, this is in the Roman period. okay, 2,000 years plus ago. Many times we forget the context where in which God was there. I'm sorry, Leviticus is not in the Roman period. It's before the Roman period. But still, you're talking about a very ancient time, okay, where there's a lot of wilderness, where there's a lot of, there's not air-conditioned places like this. There's not necessarily very high-level hygiene in terms of soap and these kinds. Of course, there's natural soaps and things like that. But you're talking about, even the scripture said, wash with water, okay, which is still a bacteria and virus can stay on you, even with washing with water, okay? And remember that these offerings were also then eaten by the Israelite community afterwards. So if you had some kind of bacteria or some kind of virus that could spread, obviously you don't want that to be spreading to other people who will be eating those foods and be ingesting, touching those foods. Okay, so all these kind of rules, so to speak, rules or ritual things help actually protect the community. And spiritually helps the person prepare their mindset for offering a sacrificial offering to the King of Kings, to God, to the Creator God, to the intelligent mind that created the universe and the matrix of reality, etc. Okay? Even when you do something as simple as the Japanese tea ceremony, guys, look up Japanese tea ceremony, video on Japanese tea ceremony. One of the main elements of preparation is the preparation for the guest. Okay? Preparation for the guest. And one will prepare the chashitsu, or the tea room, in such a manner, and it's, of course, the tea room is very simple, has just a few mats, has a little alcove that's made of, very earthy colors. And then they will choose the scroll. The scroll has special meaning. And then they'll choose also a wild flower. Okay. It has to be a wild flower. It can't be like a homegrown flower. It has to be a wild flower that represents the season that they're in. And the best type of flower for the tea ceremony, go ahead, you can play that video as we're speaking. The best type of flower for the tea ceremony is a flower that actually looks fresh as it begins, and as the tea ceremony is finished, actually has wilted. To represent the impermanence of life and the impermanence of this meeting, and so that's the preciousness of this meeting. Okay? Yes, this lady does it very well. I think this is, I've seen this one. This lady's actually performing this in someplace in Japan. Okay. But she is also doing the Urasenke style here. She's definitely an Urasenke instructor. But the point is, the tea ceremony as well, the preparation of the clothes, the preparation of the Natsue, and the Natsume, and the Chasen, and Fukusa, that's the Fukusa, that's the Shaku, okay, teaspoon and tea with Chasen. I hope I'm saying those right. Anyways. And so all these things are prepared. So the type of bowl is also prepared, given the host, the style of the bowl, whether it's a rakuan or hagiyaki-ran or a shino-wan or a oribe-wan or, etc. That's selected given the host's desire for expressing gratitude for the guest. And as you can see, it's a very ritualistic form. Now, one thing that's taught in this form is that in the West we see it as a ritual or a ceremony, okay? But in the art of Japanese tea ceremony, the ceremony is a form, okay? And the form is not necessarily bad all the time. What the form allows you to do is allows you freedom from spontaneity. Okay, many people think spontaneity is freedom, but many times spontaneity can be quite imprisoning, in the sense that if you're always forced to be spontaneous, it becomes an imprisonment and a chore. Okay, whereas when you have a form, you don't have to actually think about, trying to create something absolutely new, but you can just rely back, and your mind can be at rest and at ease, and you can actually relax, because your body, you can follow the body memory that you practice into this form. And although jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts and those kind of things don't have forms per se like katas, they do have repetition of drills and repetition of moves through fighting that allow you to do moves on the fly immediately that are based in reality and that actually work, okay? And they're built into your muscle memory. And in those moves, like a one black belt said, he said, jiu-jitsu for him is something he can rely on in this unchanging, unstable, chaotic world. One thing he can rely on is that when he trains with his partners, there's always a stability, okay? He can trust that world. It's not always chaotic and changing. Even though there's new techniques, things moving, the majority of it is stable because reality dictates that only certain moves can work in certain positions, okay? And in that sense, although one is not forced to create new, and in the sense that one is not forced to create new patterns all the time, in the set pattern of the tea ceremony, there's actually there's a freedom in the sense that, not ritualistic freedom, but there's a mental freedom. That you're not forced to perform. You're not forced to create something new, and you're able to rely on this form. It's a very interesting thing, isn't it? And we can see that in the same way in the ceremonies that God gave the people of Israel. Remember, these people were betrayed God. They were becoming pagan. They were losing all sense of decency, morality. God gives them these forms so that they understand, number one, the seriousness of the God that they're serving, and number two, that they understand there's freedom in obedience in God. When you obey God's commands, there's freedom there. You're not forced to try to always create something new, which of course never can be done, because all things that are quote new are old. All things that are new are old. They're already been thought of. They've already been done. So in the law of God, you can be free to act out your own created nature, which is what? To be in relation with God, and not to be stuck in the forms, but to be guided by the forms. And in the end, Christianity does that. It transcends the law, and the grace of God allows the law to be written on our hearts. And for us, that doesn't mean we throw away the law or that it makes it obsolete, as Jesus said he come to complete the law. But it means that we're guided by God's law, and we obey God's law because of love, because we love God. So ceremonial cleanliness is an important part, of course. Even in the ceremonies that Father made, ceremonial cleanliness was very important. You know, it's very important in preparing the offering table. It's very important when preparing the different fruits. Of course, it's not only the ceremonial cleanliness, it's not only the ritualistic cleanliness, which is also important. You know, people should wash their hands before they create food that other people will eat publicly. Those kind of things. But it is a sign of the Cheongsong that's being put. It's signs of your heart state. It's a sign of the nature of your heart as you prepare those offering tables, in what kind of mind state and heart state you are doing it for God. Okay? prayerfulness, a heart of love and service, of wanting to bring joy to your Heavenly Father. You know what I'm saying? These kind of things are all taken into consideration because they matter. You know, the way in which your child does something for you matters, right? The way in which, you know, your spouse does something for you matters. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it, right? It's not just what you do, it's how you do it. Okay, now, yes, you can just, you know, make a cake and throw it at somebody. And yes, okay, you can say, well, I baked that cake. I spent 3 hours baking cake. But you threw it at the person. So you screwed it up in the end. You screwed it up. You screwed up the presentation of it. You screwed up how you delivered it to that person so they can recognize your 3 hours of making that cake. Nobody would go through the pains of making a cake for however many hours and then just toss it at somebody. Say, hey, happy birthday. Right? You wouldn't do that because that would obviously show disregard for the painstaking amount of detail that you put in. It would show an ultimate disregard for the person that you were baking that cake for, right? You would try to present it in a manner that that person could understand your appreciation for them. In the same way, when we do an offering for God, when the Israelites were being trained to again serve God and stop serving pagan idols and, you know, stop attending temple prostitute sessions and having sex with whores, they're being taught once again to be holy and to once again remember how you present things to the Lord your God who saved your ashtray from Egypt. You see? So those kind of things are important. And when we prepare the ceremonies and offering tables for True Father, we must do it in the manner in which True Father was happy and joyful. Okay? What was it? The Queen was playing around the other day. She said, what was she talking about? What was she talking about? She was talking about the, when I was showing all my survival items during Sunday service, something like that. Or something like that. And then, anyway, she was saying, just playing around and saying, I don't think that's what a pastor does, or something like that. And I said, I'm not enslaved by state-run Christianity. We do what makes Father happy because it's in the presence of Father. What was it?
I think I said this is not a standard Sunday service. I think that's what.
Oh, this is not a standard service. Okay, that's what you said. Okay, this is not a standard Sunday service. And I said, that's all right, baby. We do what makes Father happy, or something like that, you know. And I can't remember the exact conversation, but the point is, even when we do Sunday service, we're doing it because for Father's pleasure. This whole purpose of yebe means, you know, the offering of etiquette. Yebe, literally etiquette, bowing. In Korean, that's what yebe literally. It's like etiquette or offering of politeness, or
that's what the Chinese characters.
Yeah, the Chinese characters, etiquette and bowing. So it's a reverential etiquette. But of course, Father, as you know, he loved it when there's playfulness, jokes. He loved it when there's interesting items that are interesting to him, and he loved survival things, interested in fishing and outdoors things, etc. Father would oftentimes explain those kind of things during Hundoke and during Sunday service, etc. The point is that all these ritualistic items of remembrance are there to make one remember who they're serving. This is a living God. It's not some statue. It's not some rock centerpiece. It's not some wooden carved, idol. This is the living God. And the Israelites were called to be in relation with this living God. But remember who he is. He's not just a homeboy or something like that. He is your God, your creator. So understand who you're speaking to. Understand who you're relating with. And be grateful for God who has invited you into his presence. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us on the King's Report.
I'm down here at the range today. I just learned a new technique from the father of the .44 Magnum, Elmer Keith, which is called shooting out of the notch, which allows you to make really long distance shots and still have an extremely precise sight picture. So I brought my CW9 car down, and with this little gun, we're gonna shoot this little munchkin at 200 yards up in the hills, applying this technique, and hopefully we'll make the shot. To apply this technique, instead of using the blade of the front sight lined up with the top of the rear sight, I'm going to take the dot of the front sight and raise it up so that it's out of the notch, but I'm still going to keep the front sight on my target. Bringing that front sight up like that is going to compensate for the bullet drop over that excessively long distance with just this little gun. So if applied right, we should be making contact. Let's see how it goes. I saw this shot, so I'm a little bit out of breath because you gotta run to make sure that is what I thought it was, and it was. So while making this shot, from that distance with these white dot sights, it literally would cover the entire target. You couldn't see what you were shooting. So using the Elmer Keith technique, you were able to raise it out of the back notch. I can't breathe. Out of the back notch, allowing you to keep your accuracy, aim, and also still see the target, which is key because it was a hard shot, not gonna lie. But yeah, it went great, and Elmer knows what he's talking about. And for such a small gun to be able to take that hit, I'm very impressed with this. All right, guys, be sure to like and share, and I'll see you out on the range.
That was awesome. Hey, can I try that one? Yeah, let's see what the 380. Does everybody have eyes and ears?
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report, Thursday, August 31st, 2017. Let's go now to Tim D.H. Elder for breaking news. Tim.
So there's a chemical plant about 25 miles northeast of Houston, and yesterday evening and early morning today, the media was reporting that the owners, of the managers of this plant are saying that they lost power and there's no way to prevent an explosion of the chemicals because as the temperature of those chemicals rise, then they become explosive. And just within the past half hour, it looks like that's beginning to happen. 2 explosions and black smoke have been reported at this chemical plant. Officials in Harris County early Thursday morning reported 2 explosions and black smoke billowing from a flooded chemical plant about 25 miles northeast of Houston.
Wow.
Fox 26 Houston reported that officials evacuated a 1.5 mile radius around the Arkema Inc. Plant in Crosby. The plant lost power Sunday and its backup generators amid Harvey's days-long deluge, leaving it without refrigeration for chemicals that become volatile as the temperature rises. The fire will happen. It will resemble a gasoline fire. It will be explosive and intense in nature, spokeswoman Janet Smith told the Associated Press. There's no way to prevent the explosion, CEO Rich Rowe said earlier Wednesday. In its most recently available submission from 2014, Arkema said potentially 1.5 million residents could be affected over an area of 23 miles in a worst case, according to information compiled by a nonprofit group and posted on a website hosted by the Houston Chronicle. But Arkema said it was using multiple layers of preventive and mitigation measures at the plant, including steps to reduce the amount of substance released, and that made the worst case very unlikely. Rowe told Reuters that the company has no way to prevent the explosion because the plant is swamped by 6 feet of water. The company did not move the chemicals, but told Reuters that it made extensive preparations. Arkema manufactures organic peroxides, a family of compounds used for making everything from pharmaceuticals to construction materials. As the temperature rises, the natural state of these materials will decompose. A white smoke will result, and that will catch fire, Smith said. So the fire is imminent. The question is when. The company shut down the Crosby site before Harvey made landfall Friday, but a crew of 11 had stayed behind. The group was removed, and residents within 1.5 miles were told to evacuate Tuesday after the plant lost power. Anyway, the good news is that the plant is surrounded by water, so the fire is not going to spread anywhere, but it could release harmful chemicals. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening in Houston, 25 miles northeast of Houston right now. So the rain in Houston has stopped, but the effects of the flood, or the effects of the rain, are still continuing in terms of heavy flooding, and the rivers are rising, and this kind of thing is happening with chemical. There's a lot of petrochemical plants in that area.
Go ahead. Get some film from the local news there.
Yeah.
There's some photos. Do you have some film, some video from local news? There we go. Yeah, I'm having trouble with my internet here as well. The smoke explodes. Explosions, and this has now happened in the last 30 minutes. This is breaking news. See if we can get some local news covering that right now.
I think
cover
Drudge
the
may
story.
have a link to a local news station. Meanwhile, the biggest rainstorm in history of the U.S. mainland made a second landfall on Wednesday on the Gulf Coast, slowly moving away from Houston and dousing southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. While Tropical Storm Harvey no longer has the power of the Category 4 hurricane that slammed the Gulf Coast late Friday, it is expected to weaken as it moves north towards Mississippi and Tennessee. The National Hurricane Center warned continued catastrophic and life-threatening flooding. The Texas National Guard has made more than 8,500 rescues and 26,000 evacuations, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said at a news conference Wednesday. After activating 14,000 members of the Texas National Guard, Abbott announced he was seeking an additional 10,000 National Guard members from other states. The worst is not over for southeast Texas, he said. Already tens of thousands of people in Houston and across southeast Louisiana have had to evacuate their homes, and the death toll has risen to more than 20. Actually, I think that's up to about 31 now, including a Houston police officer who drowned in his car while driving to work. A white van containing the bodies of 4 children and their great-grandparents was found Wednesday near Greens Bayou in East Houston. Virginia Saldivar said her brother-in-law Sam was driving her grandchildren and her husband's parents to higher ground Sunday when the current swept up the van. Sam survived by climbing out of the front seat and grabbing...
Put that up.
onto a tree limb,
we
but
can
the
see
van
it.
disappeared into the water.
There we go.
About 85 miles east of Houston in Beaumont, Texas, a 41-year-old mother, Colette Sulzer, and her 3-year-old daughter were swept away by high floodwaters Tuesday after getting out of their car near a flooded freeway. The child clung to its mother for half a mile before police officers and fire rescue divers spotted them in a canal and plucked them out of the water just before they went under a trestle. The mother died, but the child was stable in stable
They're
condition.
driving boats around. Those are boats, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's totally underwater. Look at that. Look at that. That's deep underwater.
The
Those are
sheriff's
street
office in
signs, yeah.
The sheriff's office in Harris County, which includes Houston, said Wednesday morning that the Coast Guard was leading a search in the northeast part of the city for two civilian rescuers still missing after a boat crash. Since Harvey made landfall Friday night as a hurricane, some areas around Houston have seen more than 50 inches of rain, about what they usually receive in a year. As the rain let up Wednesday in the nation's 4th largest city, residents were cheered by clearing skies and a bit of sunshine. Restaurants and shops began to reopen. In the Montrose neighborhood west of downtown, small groups of neighbors took to rain-slicked streets in boots and sneakers to survey the damage. Even warnings from the National Weather Service in Houston and Galveston became less dire. Improving weather conditions to come, it announced, after canceling its tropical storm warning and storm surge watch. But many areas still remained impassable. Main highways and other roads were washed out, and more than 10,000 people were temporarily homeless at the main shelter of the city's downtown George R. Brown Convention Center. City officials have asked the Federal Emergency Management Agency for cots and food for an additional 10,000 people, and officials are set to open a shelter at the Toyota Center, a downtown Houston arena. Early Wednesday, Harris County officials warned that a levee protecting the Inverness Forest subdivision in the north part of the county could fail after a portion of its base eroded. A mandatory evacuation of part of the area is in place until 6 p.m. Central Daylight Time, while crews attempt to shore up the levees. To the levee, said Jeff Linder, a meteorologist for the Harris County Flood Control District. Thousands of homes west of downtown, upstream from the Barker and Addicks reservoirs, flooded after dams backed up from the heavy rainfall. With some homes filled with up to 6 feet of water, residents would not be able to return for several weeks. Linder said at a morning news conference he was not sure if the homes would be rebuilt. When water sits in a house for weeks, the house begins to degrade, and so we're not sure what the condition of those homes will be when the residents return in a few weeks, Linder said. Will these homes be allowed to be rebuilt, or will they be rebuilt? That's the question that we'll have to look at going forward. Linder said he did not expect additional homes to flood. The watersheds are falling, and while most of them remain well over their banks and some of them remain at record levels, the water levels are going down, he said, and that's for the first time in several days.
Look, they're driving now on the highway, it looks like.
In Port Arthur, Texas, a coastal city 90 miles east of Houston,
Waters are going down, yeah.
Motiva Enterprises began a controlled shutdown of its massive plant, the nation's largest oil refinery. Employees won't go back to work until floodwaters recede. 5 miles across town, floodwater began to spill into a shelter for displaced residents. At the Robert A. Bob Bowers Civic Center, residents perched on cots, standing in murky brown water. And the death toll kept rising. On Wednesday, Beaumont officials said a second woman's body was found on the north side at 7:25 a.m. Tuesday night, the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences updated its storm-related deaths to include that of a 89-year-old woman, Agnes Stanley, who was found floating in 4 feet of floodwater in a home. Another woman, 76, was discovered floating in water near a vehicle. Her name was not released. A 45-year-old man, Travis Lynn Callahan, left his vehicle and fell into floodwater. He was taken into a hospital where he died Monday.
Wow, so absolutely devastating. Now I heard that Houston has always had a flood problem, just like Louisiana and New Orleans, because basically it has basically a concavity, and then there's many times in Houston history where Houston has been flooded. Okay, where's that article? Breitbart just had a article. Breitbart just had an article with Politico. Let's go to Breitbart. Not the store, I'm sorry. Not the Breitbart store, but Breitbart. They have an article on Politico, here it is, that mocks Politico's Matt Worker, mocks Texas hurricane victims in a political cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this tasteless cartoon where it depicts all Texans or Houstonians as cowboy white supremacists in a stereotypical way. These kind of fat, you know, leather boot, big wide brim hat, don't tread on me, a flag. And they're trying to say that, oh, all Houstonians are dumb Christians who believe, oh, look, there's angels sent by God. And the Coast Guard people are saying, oh, actually, we're the Coast Guard sent by the government. As if that if you're a Christian, you believe in some kind of superstitious, mythological, fake reality. And how that's tied with usually being independent or self-reliant and wanting to not be part of the federal government, and how that's tied to white supremacy. Okay. Very, very sad. Again, continuing racial stereotypes. The left-leaning political website is taking a potshot at white Southern Christians in an insulting new cartoon depicting believers as stupid and still yearning for the secession of the South. In the vignette, an overweight white Christian in a cowboy hat sporting a shirt made of a Confederate flag thanks God for sending angels to save his family from Hurricane Harvey. A member of the rescue team corrects the man, telling him, actually Coast Guard sent by the government. Politico chose to run the cartoon by Matt Worker, just as countless Southerners, many of them who are devout Christians, are trying to salvage their homes and lives from the devastating effects of Hurricane Harvey, which has caused unprecedented damage, including more than 2 dozen deaths and 30,000 displaced persons. Politico yanked a tweet of the offensive vignette after a number of people complained of the site's blatant anti-Christian bigotry. And the idiot tweets, praise the Lord and call the U.S. Coast Guard in a mock picture of Southern people. Talk about poor taste and poor time, and people have died, and you politicize it. Typical bastard. I'm sure the Coast Guard would tell you that they were instruments in the hand of God. You are not the Coast Guard or the victims anyway. In one cartoon, you insult red Texas, blue Houston, blue Harris County, Christians, and white, black, brown, rich, poor, suffering from the flood. Wow. Myopic, closed-minded bigotry, another tweeter says. That's right, you do, and stay insufferably smug and keep on hating. It's working out swell for Team Blue and journalism in general. Real-life Texas and LA rednecks display grit and resourcefulness as they rescue their urbanite cousins. That's right. And it's fishermen and hunters that are actually on their boats, because they have boats, that are actually fishing around for people, urbanite, idiot, unprepared, city slickers who make fun of Southerners and country people all the time until there's a natural disaster where they have to deal with the actual wild that they've run away from in their concrete jungles. And you have the fishermen and you have the hunters that are out on their boats rescuing people because they're the ones who have the boats and they're the ones who know how to drive through water. it's just so sickening, the arrogance of these urbanite elites. I mean, they're so sickening. How they always just make fun. They're just like this smug little elitist class that all these liberal lunatic brainwashed children are indoctrinated that they have to try to worship and be a part of that in-group. And if they're not, they're worthless and they're scum and they're white supremacists and they're racist. And that you have to spend your whole life going to debt slavery to try to be like these elitist urbanites. When they're the most arrogant, narcissistic, foolish, puerile, infantile children who get off on power trips and like having sex with, you know, all manner of human beings, okay? It's just so ridiculous that those idiots are to be worshipped in this culture. And they make fun of people who actually know how to do things, know how to rescue people, know EMS, know fishing and hunting, and then can use those skills to actually save other people. Those people are much more prepared than the people who are urbanites making fun of them all day long. And then, of course, when they help them, they're like, okay, they shut up for about two or 3 days on making fun of rural people. But it's just such an arrogant of the urbanites, you know what I mean? As if they're better than the rural people. As if they're better, as if they don't rely on the rural people for their produce, organic foods, and all this stuff. They're just so arrogant. It's like this smug, arrogant, we're close to centralized power, so we are meaningful. We're close to centralized power, so we are powerful by extension. It's just this arrogant little, you know, locust-like, parasitical groupthink mentality, which just mocks and makes fun of people who have self-reliance and people who have real skills in God's creation and who love God's creation. I mean, I just feel so blessed that I could live in the countryside where I can hear crickets and nighttime toads and frogs chirping. I mean, that brings like healing to my soul. You know what I mean? It just makes me so happy. At night, I can just roll down the window and listen to these crickets chirping in the summertime, and these frogs chirping in the pond. You know what I mean? It's so healing. It's so healing. It's so unbelievably healing. And maybe because from a young age, you know, we weren't allowed off the East Garden property without security. So the nature that was on the property, I mean, some of it, like the areas that were more public, were more kept. But there was some acreage on that property, which was unkept, and more like wilderness, okay? And I used to spend so much time back there, climbing trees and just hanging out. I used to go write poems on the big rock back there, not above Holy Rock. But it's like nature gave me so much solace all the time. Gave me a place to get away from the public life or public people or members running around all the time. Because when we had big events, and members would not wander in the wilderness area, in the sort of more unkept areas, because it was more dirty and it just looked like unkept wilderness. Even though it's in a suburban area, it's a big property, and there's still acres of woods in there. So obviously the members wouldn't wander through them. They would stay more on the grass and the kept areas and around the places where the public ceremonies were being held. But if you were in the buildings, you would feel like a prisoner, because every single doorway, every single entrance is blocked by people. So you feel more like a prisoner. But if you were able to run away into the woods, you could actually feel free. You can actually watch the hordes of people there from afar. And so the wilderness, not the wilderness, the woods always gave me some kind of solace and a calm and peace. And it's always reliable. Nature's always reliable. Not in the sense that there's changing weather patterns and all that kind of thing, but there's a reliability in that it's always there. It's always there for you. It's always there for you. whether it's rain, shine, or snow, it's still there for you. You know what I mean? And if you have a relationship with nature, not that you worship nature as a god, that's false, that's pagan, that's sinful. But you interact with nature and God's creation as a steward of it, as one who's in the end to have dominion over it, and one that can play in it and have like a playground and a friend, a pharmacy, and all those kind of things are there still, but have like a friend that you can walk with, and that God has given you as a gift to walk with throughout your lifetime. That again has that stability. In a world of craziness and chaos, having something stable to return to is so important. That's why it's important for men who are getting blessed to be stable, because you will be the rock of your house. You will be the head of your house. It's important that you are stable, because your wife and your children, when they're emotionally unstable, they're going to rely on you to be stable and to be calm in the storm. Okay, if you're a mom, of course, your children will rely on you to be stable and not just worry and get emotional. Because women, your brains are wired differently, and emotional realities are become real, very powerful in your mind, even though they're not real in reality. That's not always necessarily a bad thing. That makes society, that adds a different element to society. It should not be the governing force of society. That's dangerous. But it adds to the coloration of society, and emotional things like dramas and art and all this kind of thing. That is part of the emotional realm. It adds to society, but it should not drive society. If it drives society, it destroys society. And of course, not all women are like that. There's a lot of women who are more mature and not like the regular brain-dead, unreflective girls who are able to deal with their emotional mind states and control them. Like yesterday, the Queen was training. I made her train with Caleb, who was a small boy, and the girls all think they don't, when they see him, they don't see an imposing man. They just think, okay, there's a kid, and he's not really. They don't see an imposing masculine person, which they're awed by. They just see him as like a skinny boy. But he, even a skinny boy like that just demolishes the girls. I mean, even though they're like that, all the girls are like, wow, the Queen's so strong and Emo's so strong. I mean, these little boys just wipe the floor with them. That's how different males and females are. Wipe the floor. And the Queen yesterday was training with Caleb because she has to start training with boys more. I'm making her do that so that she gets used to the male's explosive energy. And she just said she was just like literally overwhelmed. I mean, just overwhelmed. But if you ask any of the boys that have to train with Caleb, they're like, no, that's normal. He had a shin up on her neck, smashing her neck and, just dominating her. And she was just she had to literally fight for her life just to stay alive. And of course she got submitted 3 times, just got utterly demolished. And the girls are there watching, and it's a good reality check for them. Because you have all the new girls that, they worship, the more advanced girls who can just kill them and wipe the floor with them. But then they see them getting wiped the floor with these skinny little wimp boys that they think are just wimps and they totally ignore and they don't think are strong. But that's why girls are so deluded. They're so deluded unless they actually do real fighting. They're really deluded in terms of strength. So they'll respect somebody who's 220 pounds and looks big and strong, but they won't respect a small boy who is trained. That's a big delusion. So when they experience, like she was, actually emotionally, she was very devastated yesterday. And for hours after training with Caleb, she was still emotionally down. And I understand. Because of that. And so the king had to counsel her and drink tea with her and counsel her. You see what I'm saying? because they're not used to dealing with their emotions, confronting them and fighting them like that, unless they, of course, do that kind of training. If they do this training, then, of course, they're going to learn how to deal with their emotions and not get emotional and let the emotions control them. And that, of course, helps them parent their children and gain respect from their sons and other men who have to basically, they don't live by emotions. Men are trained very early on to kill your emotions. But the girls are taught that that's bad. Don't kill your emotions. You got to always be emotional and feel, and you have to understand your other girlfriend's emotions. Whereas men, you're not taught to do that. You're taught that emotions are dangerous. Emotions are deleterious. Emotions cloud your vision, which is true. That's simply true. It's simply true. So when girls actually do the real arts which break delusion, they have to learn to not be emotional. So when you see girls that are much tougher, like warrior arts, girls that are purple belt level, some of that, they're super tough. Doesn't mean they don't get emotion. They still have a different wired brain. But they've now created so many neural pathways that are able to stop that between stimulus response, to stop those emotional reactions, and they can react much stronger. Of course, at that stage, they've trained with men, they've beat up men. And at purple belt level, I mean, no instructor is going to promote you to purple belt unless you're able to beat up men and to submit men who are literally trying to fight for their lives. And they have way more, 2-3 times more explosive power set up, but you still have to deal with that with technique. And so they're totally different animal. Those kind of girls and the girls that are just brain dead lunatics that are brainwashed by school and, are debt slaves and, watch MTV and, are in complete delusional land. I mean, they're just in such a delusional world. They think they can go up to a guy and just start cussing them. F you, F you, F you, and start slapping them. And then they're going to be shocked when they get hit back. Try going to do that in a Muslim country. You're going to get your head cut off. You know what I mean? But it's so interesting how girls will mushi. Mushi means like totally like blow off, disrespect and disregard guys who are like gentlemen and they're nice, and they actually think that those men are not powerful. If that kind of man, like they'll see some kind of overweight kind of fatter guy, and they'll just think that guy is such a reason, they'll just totally blow him off. They have no idea how strong fat people can be, fat guys can be. Absolutely no idea. Unless, of course, they train real fighting where they have to fight fat guys. They realize even fat guys have tremendous strength. Tremendous strength. Some of the strongest power lifters and like strongmen, in this competition, they're just like these fat blobs. Obviously, they're not like the social justice warrior fat blobs. They look big. I mean, they're clearly big and strong. But you would never imagine they can lift 3,000 pounds or something like that. You would never imagine that. I mean, they just look like an overweight fat guy. But the amount of power they have is ridiculous. So men, because if we challenge people like that, you get beat up in the men's world. You learn very quickly that you should not judge somebody just because they're fat. But girls never learn that. Because they don't get beat, they don't get that ashtray beat up if they challenge somebody. Mm-hmm. They're in this delusional little fake little nice world. And that's why, of course, when Islam comes around, they get beat up. But it is very important for, and of course, boys and girls, because men are becoming more feminized and being raised by public school teachers who are all 90% women, and teaching men to become literally like women and become hyper emotionalized. Nowadays, boys and girls need to learn how to defeat their emotions and become the subject to their emotions and not be slaves to their emotions. Because that doesn't create beautiful art, it just creates nasty art that literally, even in art, it creates nasty art that is pretending to be creative. Literally, they had a prize. I mean, Paul Joseph Watson did a video on it. It's sick. They had a prize at an art show where it's a literal a butt. It's a big butt. and this was made fun of in a movie 20 years ago that was making fun of the future of art, where they would literally stare at they would watch a movie looking at somebody's butt and just laughing at it, and that would be comedy. That's how dumbed down the population would be. That's how low the IQ would become. So art was not, at that point, what they were pointing out the fact is, art will be used by the government to actually bring down the IQ of the people, instead of art being something that actually stimulates philosophy and stimulates thinking and stimulates theology and stimulates your brain to think. Instead of that, it's this art that's just like, you know, a piece of dung on a white room, and that's supposed to be art. You see what I'm saying? It's left its fine art status. It's left its art, which is supposed to be transcendental and make you think not about relativism, but think about deeper things like the universe or our existence, existential things. Not just, oh, everything has its own self-expression. Everything is beautiful in its own self-expression. Even the Satanist pedophiles by Salon magazine, well, you know, they have their own beauty because they represent a percentage of humanity, and pedophilia has always existed. So minor attraction syndrome it's not necessarily bad. You see this? This is how it becomes. This is what it becomes. This is what art in the modern day has become. Postmodern, relativistic art. You know, so we were talking yesterday, you know, we were talking about the difference between art and these kind of arts that make you non-delusional. They don't award just your own creative thinking. They only reward things that work. And that's the thing about combat arts, Peace, Police, Militia. It breaks delusion, breaks young people out of delusion, because it doesn't accept just any idea. There are stupid ideas. There are stupid ideas that get your ashtray choked out and killed and submitted and crippled. There are stupid ideas that, I mean, in public school you're taught there's no stupid ideas. That's ridiculous. Of course there's stupid ideas. There's ideas that are clearly stupid. And in the real world, and where there's consequences in combat arts, you do a stupid idea, you think you're creative, you do, oh, I'm going to do this because I think it's creative, nobody thought of it, you idiot. You're going to get your ashtray whooped. That's what I love about the combat arts. It breaks people out of delusion. It just shatters their delusion. People who don't know, people who have never done it, do not understand the reality. And they think painting a painting is actually same, or playing music is the same as combat arts. No, it's not. No, it's not. Playing music and drawing a painting is nothing like a human being who's trained trying to kill you and dominate you. And it doesn't matter how creative you think you are, you have stupid ideas and you suck and you will get dominated. But that's such a good reality for people to confront, because then they realize, oh, there's a difference between good and bad. There's a difference between right and wrong. There's a difference between stupid and not stupid. There's different what works and what does not work. And this teaches you not all things are equal. Not all relativism is not true. There is a difference between what is right and what is wrong. There is a difference between good and evil. There is a difference between what works and what does not work. There is a difference between reality and non-reality. There is a difference, and you will feel it and you will experience it by literally suffocating to death before you have to surrender to this other normal human being, otherwise normal, and that you probably thought was a wimp, that is kicking your ashtray. Thank God for PPP militia in Chanigut, where the new generations are trained out of delusionhood and become real people, which then can train the next generation to be real as well. Thank God. We thank True Father for his gift of Peace Police, Peace Militia. And everybody thought that it was crazy. And what is Reverend Moon talking about people? Now we know how valuable it is. So precious, so valuable. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us on the King's Report.
When stars are hiding feel them shining when I can't see beyond my doubt. The silver light is living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring alive. He's roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival.
God's not dead. He's surely alive.
He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival.
God's not dead, he's surely alive.
He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring alive. He's roaring. He's roaring. He's roaring like a lion.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back this Thursday, August 31st, 2017 to the King's Report. I am Second King of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Sean Moon, here reporting from the Cheongguk Palace. Let's now go to actual Korean news. This is reported by MBC, one of the big mainstream media outlets in Korea, about the Korean situation.
북한에 대한 전방위 압박을 강화하겠다는 의지를
There
드러낸
we go.
것으로 해석됩니다.
They're describing,
워싱턴에서
of course, the
현안
scenario right now, the showdown and standoff
북한이
with
거듭된
North Korea
미국의 대화
and
제의를 무시하고 탄도미사일
President Trump
도발을
and or the
지속하자
United States.
트럼프 대통령이 더 이상 인내하지
So this is
않겠다는
coverage that is happening on the ground
트럼프는 트위터를 통해
from
미국은
Seoul
지난 25년간
as we have to
북한과
deal
대화를
with
해왔으며
now
터무니없는 돈을
a crazed
지불해왔다고
North Korea
지적했습니다.
shooting,
대화는 답이
literally
아니라고
shooting
대화
missiles
무용론을
over other
이틀 전
nation
아베 일본
states,
총리와 통화에서
Japan is
지금은
being
북한과 대화할 때가
literally
대화
has
제의에 대한
ICBM missiles
회의론을
flying
들어갔지만
over their heads.
지금이라는 전제도 삭제하며 강경 노선으로의 전환을
They're reporting on Trump's statements that he made regarding that
트럼프가
issue.
백악관 성명을 통해 모든 옵션이 테이블 위에 있다고 밝힌 만큼 군사 행동을 포함한 전방위 대북 압박이
The
가해질
purpose of
것이라는
this
전망.
report is to reassure,
한반도
not to
주변의
inform.
핵심
Yes,
전략
absolutely,
자산을
absolutely
통해
right. Because the
군사력을
Korean mainstream
고취하고
is, of course,
중국을 압박해
completely
북한에 대한
statist to
경제
run.
제재를 더욱 강화하는 조치를 취할
But let's keep some of those images rolling. Keep that thing rolling. Keep that clip rolling. And you can turn down their volume a little. Turn down their volume. And let's go into this article by U.S. Intercepts, by Kit Daniel. U.S. intercepts missile during test amid North Korea standoff. Drill suggests U.S. can intercept North Korean missile. Let's just turn off the Korean background noise there. But you can keep those playing. Keep those playing from on the ground in Seoul. The U.S. Navy successfully intercepted a ballistic missile during a drill only days after North Korea fired a missile over Japan. The USS John Paul Jones, which is based in Hawaii, tracked the projectile on radar and destroyed it with a volley of SM-6 guided missiles, according to the U.S. Missile Defense Agency. We are working closely with the fleet to develop this important new capability, and this was a key milestone in giving our Aegis ships an enhanced capability to defeat ballistic missiles in their terminal phase, said MDA Director Lieutenant General Sam Greaves. We will continue developing the ballistic missiles defense technology to stay ahead of the threat as it evolves. The drill suggests that a Navy destroyer in the Sea of Japan could potentially knock down a North Korean missile, an increasingly likely scenario after North Korea fired a KN-17 missile over Japan on Saturday. The missile overflew Japan and landed in the Pacific Ocean off the east coast of Hokkaido, one of Japan's major islands. In response, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered 1,500 Russians near the North Korean border to evacuate as military action against North Korea becomes plausible. The surprise move comes after President Donald Trump warned all options are on the table in terms of a U.S. response to the missile launch, Newsmax reported. Trump said North Korea has signaled its contempt for its neighbors, for all members of the United Nations, and for minimum standards of acceptable international behavior. And of course, if we were able to continue the work that True Father set out for us to do as his anointed Cain and Abel in Korea, we would have already been able to transform the Defense Department and military, which we are already working with at the top level, to transform into the model that's closer to Chanigok Peacekeeping Militia, where military-aged men would be able to bring their firearms back home and then teach firearm safety to their wives and children, and then create a gun culture in Korea, not only that can be transformed into a military within 1 hour, the whole nation, but at the same time, you would have civilians that were carrying, now had rifles at least in their home, and pistols in their home. And so they would train their children, yeah, when your daddy and mommy are out and you have to defend yourself, if some robber tries coming in, you get that pistol that I've trained you to use and you can defend this household. See, they would begin to teach them sovereignty, the culture of sovereignty. They would begin to create an environment which is threatening to mafia and gangsters who would have to think twice about invading a house now because there's now long rifles and probably pistols there as well. You see that? Just because the dad brings home the weapons, he now is empowering the whole household to get into the firearms culture. Or let's say the self-defense culture. So instead of the Koreans having to rely on slow police getting there always late, they can rely on themselves. And that is one step towards sovereignty, and that is a huge step in changing the culture of the civilization. That would also, within 10 years, have created a scenario where South Korea would be a military might in East Asia, and North Korea would have to deal with a radically different South Korea, because now you would have an infantry power which was 20 million people, or let's say even 10 million if you exclude children. The male population in Korea is going to be 20 million because 45 million is about the regular population. Let's say half are men, 20 million, and let's say you take away all the children under 18. Okay, well you still have 10 million at least, 15 million, you're talking about people, which are then can be converted into a military within a second, within 1 hour, that whole nation can be militarized and become a military, all right? So you have a huge infantry force then, which then can be used to battle against North Korea. Of course, at the same time, you would have to increase technology and weapons and arms and have nuclear capabilities in the Defense Department as a whole. That would completely change the power demographic of East Asia. And of course, if Japan did the same and listening to our instruction as well, as Korea followed suit, as following Korea's suit, then you would have a totally different scenario in Asia where North Korea could not act in this particular way, and you would have balancing of power with China's military might, with now South Korea's military might, and Japan's military might standing as the countervailing forces against tyranny and totalitarianism. You see? And Almighty Father had set us out on that mission, that we were already working with the top levels of government, top levels of the elites in Korea. Before all that, of course, was destroyed by the curse of the Han Mother and the fall of the Han Mother, seeking narcissism and self-godhood and betrayal and erasing true Father and the King's legacy, and totally betraying him, even chasing away his own successor, heir, and representative body, only legitimate successor, heir, representative body on the earth, and of course, destroying the three kingships, trying to destroy the three kingships, which of course has led to her own destruction, which we told her that would happen, which would happen if she betrayed true Father. And of course, not only that, but the larger scale macrocosmic curse, which then leads to the destruction and curse of East Asia, which of course we discussed in the Korean service, studying Revelation 12 yesterday. But you would have a completely different landscape if True Father's providence was continued to be able to be done, and Cheongguk was able to be launched from Korea and then influencing strong Korea, strong Japan, and of course strong America. And the Worldwide Foundation and the Worldwide Foundation that Father had created would not be in the mire of heresy, the mire of the Han Mother's heresy, etc., and could move forward continuously and to bring God's kingdom. And in the end, True Father's prophecy comes true that she is the one that can choose between the kingdom coming by peace or by blessing, by blessing or by curse, by blessing or by judgment. She has chose judgment, but that will not stop God's kingdom from coming. It just has been delayed, but God's kingdom will come. And that are the times, those are the times that we are living in. As you see Korea's live broadcast, recent broadcast about the North Korean situation there. Let's go to Tim for a deepening of this report. Tim.
So why didn't the United States shoot down that missile that as it was flying over Japan?
No, keep that background up. Keep that background up.
This is an article on defense1.com. The United States has 33 Aegis warships. 3 more are slated to arrive next year that can launch an interceptor to hit a mid or intermediate range missile like the Hwasong-12 that North Korea sent over Hokkaido. 16 of these warships are currently in the Pacific. Pacific Command in Honolulu did not respond to questions about why they didn't attempt to down Monday's missile. The command did issue a statement. North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, determined the missile launched from North Korea did not pose a threat to North America. Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis has said earlier this month that any North Korean missile headed towards the U.S. land, including Guam and other territories, would be shot down and considered war against the United States. But, he added, if the missile were tracking to land in the sea, it would be the President's call what to do about it. Tom Caraco, senior fellow and missile defense expert with the Center for Strategic and International Studies, said that if the missile launched Monday were really a threat to the United States or even Japan, then presumably we may well have attempted to engage it. But what are the costs and what are the benefits in attempting such an intercept? Anti-missile interceptors like the ones on U.S. warships are designed to hit enemy missiles as they reach peak altitude. In the case of the Hwasong-12, that's above 3,500 kilometers. The United States has demonstrated that it can intercept mid-range and slightly higher intermediate range missiles, but The test record includes embarrassing and recent failures. Between January 2002 and August 14 of this year, the Defense Department attempted 37 intercepts of a mid-range missile and hit the target 29 times with an SM-3. So that's 29 out of 37. There are many reasons for this, but the biggest, according to the Pentagon's Office of the Director of Operations, Testing and Engineering, is that realistic testing of interceptors is a very expensive and requires a lot of lead time and support. And then he mentions the one on Wednesday, or yesterday. On Wednesday morning, MDA conducted another successful intercept test using an SM-6 aboard a warship against a medium-range ballistic missile target. The USS John Paul Jones detected and tracked a target missile launched from the Pacific Missile Range facility on Kauai, Hawaii, with its onboard AN Spy-1 radar, the agency said in a press statement. In February, MDA showed that their newest version of the standard missile, the SM-3-2A, could hit a mid-range missile, but a second test in June was a failure. The Navy later attributed that to human error, but 50% is not a good record for the most advanced intermediate-range interceptor in the U.S. arsenal. The Obama administration pushed hard for a ship-based defense against mid-range North Korean missiles aimed at Japan or Guam, but found that the military has much better chance of hitting missiles that don't fly so high. Shooting down an enemy missile aimed at U.S. territory may be good defense, but shooting down a missile test aimed at a sea would be an act of war, or so argued North Korea. Taking a shot at a North Korean missile is not something the U.S. military would do lightly or without a directive to do so, said Karako. If we are going to shoot at something, we will do it like we mean it. But there has to be good reason to do it. That reason might be if there is an actual threat to the U.S., its forces, or our allies. Or it might be that if the U.S. or Japan adopts a policy to intercept certain types of missiles or those on certain kinds of trajectory. But that would have to be a deliberate policy choice. The highest probability of success would be to hit the enemy missile closer to the ground during the so-called boost phase. That is when it's first coming off the launcher. That's what MDA is aiming for in the future with laser-armed drones. In July, the agency put out a request for information for a high-altitude, long-endurance aircraft, reading that to mean a drone that can fly above 63,000 feet for a long time. According to the request, the drone should have enough power for a 140 kilowatt laser. But that program won't even begin testing until 2023. Until then, and likely even after, every time a missile heads towards Japan, Guam, or anywhere else, military leaders will have to decide whether attempting to shoot down North Korean missiles is worth the cost of possibly missing or even starting a war.
There you go. Intensity rising on the peninsula. Also in other news, Cernovich sources White House coup underway, Trump under house arrest. Breitbart News editor-in-chief Alex Marlow spoke to journalist Mike Cernovich on Breitbart News Daily this morning discussing the Trump presidency, Jared Kushner, and Ivanka Trump's, there's Cernovich right there, influence and the possibility of President Trump being held under house arrest. Mike Cernovich appeared on Breitbart's Daily News to speak to Breitbart editor-in-chief Alex Marlow, etc. There's some pretty explosive stuff in your report, said Alex Marlow, referencing Cernovich's recent Trump dispatches. And so I just wanted to unpack some of it with you. The first place where it starts in your dispatch is that Trump is on house arrest. And you cite John Bolton, who people thought was under consideration for National Security Advisor for Secretary of State, who can't even have access to the president right now. And this is a pretty big departure from the campaign trail Trump. Golly, if he put John Bolton as Secretary, oh my goodness. That would be an utter disaster.
Yeah, John Bolton is itching for
talk about a warmonger, my goodness.
He's the
Rhino, he's like McCain's twin.
Yeah, well, more than McCain. He's like McCain's older brother, I think.
Oh my gosh. Exactly. So I'd heard from people that Trump is on house arrest, replied Cernovich. I thought, oh, come on, the President of the United States, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. But I kept digging into it, and I kept hearing the same thing over and over again. And then, of course, John Bolton wrote his column for National Review, and he's begging people to retweet it. He said, this is the only way the president is going to see it. And I'll say, Alex, I don't really understand. How can Trump not see who he wants to see? This is something I don't really fully comprehend within the White House. I've talked to a lot of people. It's a very weird situation. Marlo agreed. It is a very weird situation, and this is something that I'm afraid is systemic of something that's happening inside. People that listen to the show know that I'm not a huge fan of Javanka fan, referencing Jared Kushner and Ivanka, and I'm just seeing the numbers here, Mike, and the people inside the White House. You've got Kushner, you've got Trump, Ivanka Trump, you've got Gary Cohn, Diana Powell, H.R. McMaster, who I know you're really the first person to call him out as a big threat to the MAGA agenda, and it's just overwhelming. And now with no Bannon and with no Gorka, just where is the president getting information that can tie him, connect him to his own base? I heard John Kelly had taken up his Trump's phone, so he wouldn't be getting messages on his phone, which again, I thought was a weird story when people were telling me that. I said, come on, get out of here. You can't take the president's phone. This is incomprehensible. But again, that Bolton thing confirmed it, and I'm not a big John Bolton fan personally. I don't have anything against him, but I found it amazing that he was, again, begging for retweets, saying the only way the president is going to see my article is maybe if it goes viral. Coup is a strong word, said Marlo, but it's very hard to argue against it at this point. Marlo then mentioned his fears about Trump's distance from his voting base and his refusal to appear on talk radio. Marlo stated that he worries that Trump doesn't talk to people that understand or remember what the base voted for when they cast their ballot for Trump in November. Cernovich commented on Trump's interview with Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, but his failure to talk to the likes of Breitbart News, Daily Caller, or calling into the likes of Rush Limbaugh and other talk show radio hosts. Later in the interview, Marlo asked, Mike, give us your thoughts on the threat to America First agenda coming from the media. Yeah, the media is running public relations for the left, stated Cernovich, pointing out that donations to the DNC are now down considerably. He continued to describe that this showed that people have lost support within the DNC and that no longer trust the media. Marlo then went on to question Cernovich about his claims that White House staffer Ben Rhodes was essentially running the National Security Council. Cernovich replied with a claim that Rhodes was colluding with McMaster to leak sensitive information from within the White House. According to Cernovich, Ben Rhodes' people leak all the information out to Rhodes, and his intermediaries, McMaster, looks the other way, and that's part of this coup. Marlo and Cernovich also discussed the Trump tax, which was mentioned in the first part of Cernovich's dispatches, which refers to the price that people pay for supporting Trump, both privately and in the media. A source told Cernovich after what they did to Thiel, who was willing to pay the Trump tax. And there you go. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us on the King's Report.
Forever safe in the Savior's hands. You are more than words could say. I follow you for all my days. Fix my eyes, follow in your ways. Forever free in unending grace. 'Cause you are.
658. 614. 646. 471.
Hello folks, I'm Justin Moon, the president of Carr Firearms Group, and today I've got the PM40 with True Glow night sights, and look at that, Magna porting. Look at that porting on that. This is our standard PM40 with the day sights, but now this model with the Magna porting and the True Glow night sights. What a difference. the 40 caliber PMs have a reputation for being quite a bit of a kicker. They do kick a lot. And so we put the Magnaporting on these PM40s, and boy, what a difference does that make. It really makes this PM40 shoot a lot softer, reduces the muzzle flip, the recoil comes straight back into you, and becomes a very manageable pistol.
And we are back. Welcome back this Thursday, August 31st, 2017 to the King's Report. I'm your host, Hung Jin Sean Moon, second king of Chanigok. Now, in very shocking news, Muslim mediator defends gang rape after attack. Quote, enjoyed like normal intercourse when woman calms. A so-called cultural mediator at a migrant reception center in Italy has caused outrage with his comments on rape following attacks on tourists from Poland and Peru in Rimini, Italy. This cultural mediator at a migrant reception center, Abid G, wrote that rape was, quote, a worst act, but only in the beginning. When the willy goes in, then the woman becomes calm, and you enjoy it like a normal intercourse. This is the level of insanity that multiculturalism and relativism has given Europe. This is insanity. Oh my God! I mean, it's so sick. I mean, I get too riled up every morning just reading this kind of crap. It's just one after another, day after day. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. It's ridiculous. This is the guy, a cultural mediator, a Muslim migrant reception center. And he writes, rape is a worse act, but only in the beginning. When the willy goes in, then the woman becomes calm. And you enjoy it like normal intercourse, even though you're being raped by men who you don't know and are just forcefully raping you. What? These people are freaking sick! On Facebook, this is what he said on Facebook. After a Polish couple and a Peruvian transsexual were attacked by 4 men thought to be North African Muslim migrants, according to the Agencia Nacional Stampa Asociata. The news agency says G's post caused a stir despite being quickly removed, with many calling for him to be sacked. Oh my God. I mean, that is outrageous. The attack saw 2 26-year-old Poles subject to a brutal and bestial attack in the popular tourist destination of the Adriatic coast. The male was struck on the head with a bottle and beaten unconscious before his girlfriend was repeatedly raped in front of him and thrown into the sea. Are you fucking kidding me? Both were hospitalized following the attack, and the male will likely require facial surgery. A transsexual person from Peru was also raped by the gang, either before the attack on the Polish couple or shortly afterwards, according to the conflicting accounts. This is unbelievable! And you have the government siding with these crazy Muslim migrant mediators that say, oh, you know, it's bad, but when they start raping the women and the willy goes in, they calm down. Just after a little pumping, they calm down. And then they enjoy it. They enjoy it. And that's really what must be happening in Europe as they let them flood in and take over. Electing these and not chasing out these crazy politicians or putting them under this type of danger. And their daughters on this kind of danger. This is absurd. The case has caused alarm in Italy and considerable anger in Poland, which is sending its own investigators to help apprehend the suspect. Of course, they're not going to get any jail time, they never do. Giorgia Meloni, who lead the Conservative Brothers of Italy party, said law and order in the country had eroded during the migrant crisis. Oh, you think? You think? And you have your stupid Pope saying, let him pour in to other countries other than the Vatican. You have the crazy Pope who moral postures and virtue signals all day long. It's like, it's not Christian to build walls when he lives behind 300-foot walls. It's not Christian to have illegal immigrants pour over the border. That's not Christian to tell them to stop. And that's what you get for listening to a political Satanist who protects pedophile rings within the Catholic Church. Okay? And the raping of nuns. That's what you get. The country has eroded during the migrant crisis and law and order, and that is beginning to resemble the worst favelas of South America in places. Matteo Salvini, who leads Italy's populist Northern League, has said, quote, prison is not enough for the perpetrators, and reiterated previous calls for migrant sex attackers to be chemically castrated. Poland's Deputy Justice Minister Patryk Jaki went even further in an impassioned Twitter post writing, for these bastards should be the death penalty. Although for this particular case, I would also restore torture. You know what? And that's what will happen in Cheniguk because people have local control and they will punish these type of animals with tremendous brutality. And that's good because that is scourging the evil. Scourging the evil, which is seeking to destroy people's lives who just want to go see the Adriatic Sea. And then they're under threat of being slammed with a bottle and their wife being raped repeatedly on a beach and then tossed into the ocean. Are you fucking kidding me? This is ridiculous, okay? And shame on you, Italy. Shame on you, Europe, for being such little castrated punks. Listening to these feminazis and these takeover, globalist, international bankers making you guilt shamed for having any balls and standing up for your own freaking country. Shame on you for listening to the lies of politicians and Marxist professors putting you to debt slavery and stupid public school teachers who are brainwashing you to be mentally ill with transsexual and homosexual political agendas. So you can't have proper amygdala function and you think Christian culture is same as Muslim culture when it's not. How about you trying to help the real migrants in Syria getting axe murdered and heads beheaded and women being raped because they're Christian? How about helping those people? Instead of listening to the UN trying to use divide conquer strategy with George Soros to try to implode your country so they can totally ravage, rape you. This is ridiculous. Those stupid groups must be punished, brutalized. Even, of course, death penalty. Absolutely, in Cheniguk there will be a death penalty allowed for these kind of gang rapers. Absolutely, local jurisdiction will allow it. No question about it. These type of predators come and try to predate and rape women on the beach and toss them in the sea, multiple gang rapes, and try to make an argument that they enjoy it. Yeah, the woman who's out on a vacation with her husband really enjoys being raped by North African Muslim migrants who think it's a joke and it's part of their culture to rape women because they're kafir and they're heretics and they're not part of their fanatical jihadi religion. Because they're animals, worse than animals, lower than animals. And they're given permission by the Quran and the Hadith to treat non-Muslims as animals. In the best case scenario, as second-class citizen dhimmis. It's ridiculous. That's utterly sick. It's absolutely sick. What has happened what has had to have happened to poor, innocent, white Europeans who are brain dead in listening to the EU and brain dead in listening to this communist Soviet Europe, which is just sitting on top of them, making them guilty of being human beings. Because they want to dehumanize them, they want to conquer them, they want them to get rid of all Christian culture. Because they are running the pedophile groups, they want to ally with Jihadi Islam, which also does pedophile groups and sex trafficking. They still sell women on blocks in Somalia today. Women are being sold in sex slavery in Muslim countries today. Right now. This is not a 6th century, 7th century practice. This is happening today because it's legal in Sharia law. And that's why the stupid elites and the crazed pedophile bankers and the Luciferians and the political Satanists ally with radical jihadi Islam because they're of this cut of the same cloth. Trying to get rid of any vestige of Christian culture, any vestige of Europe waking up and remembering its roots as a Christian countries and Christian nations who created prosperity and openness and tolerance with their Christian ethic of respecting freedom of choice. But then they've gone too far and stopped and not been able to stand up against unrighteousness, and they've been guilt-shamed using their own ethics to then be taken over and be imploded. It's just so sickening to see this every day. But you can't run away from it. You have to see it because you have to understand how serious the threat is. And of course, we know in the post-trib, in the mid-trib, post-mid-trib period, we know there's going to be a lot of chaos, wars, mockery, persecution of Christians, killing, beheadings of Christians. That will only increase worldwide as the left, political left, worldwide, allies with radical jihadi Islam. McMaster trying to bring in 600,000 Muslim migrants, not Christian Syrian migrants. He's 100% following Hillary Clinton's lead, trying to bring in 600,000 Muslim migrants. Are you crazy? Do you not see what's happening to Europe? These people have infiltrated the White House. They've surrounded the president. There was a coup going on. They're now separating the president from his voter base, and they're taking down this country with the 3 generals that are now colluding and around Trump. We are in serious times. This is ridiculous. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
And Second King back here on the King's Report. And Coulter, why the media are in a never-ending hunt for right-wing violence. After I'd spent a decade begging Republicans, she writes, including a few presidential candidates to take up the immigration issue, Donald J. Trump came along, championed the entire thesis of Adios America, and swept all contenders aside. It's too late for the likes of Marco Rubio, Mitt Romney, and Paul Ryan to avoid humiliation, but if they don't want to keep making asses of themselves in public by, for example, praising today's version of the KKK, they should read my entire corpus of work, starting with Demonic. Trump somehow grasped the whole point of the book, too. The reason normal people are suspicious of the media's narrative on Charlottesville is that we've heard this exact same story many, many times before. Facts on the ground. Approximately every other year since forever, liberal hooligans have been rampaging throughout the streets, beating people up, setting off bombs, killing cops, smashing store windows, assassinating politicians, and burning down neighborhoods against capitalism, Vietnam, Nixon, Wall Street, or police shooting, Trump, Starbucks, a sunny day. Conservatives, mostly families, have generally avoided even the mildest forms of political protest, and when they finally are driven to petition the government over their grievances, they pick up after themselves at tea parties, town halls, Trump rallies, and so on. Result, the entire media are constantly on red alert for the threat of right-wing violence. The explanation for this apparent madness is that the left, both the scribblers and the shock troops, bear all the characteristics of a mob, and set forth more than a century ago by the father of groupthink French psychologist Gustave Le Bon. No behavior on the left is mysterious if you read Le Bon, or demonic. In the crowd, a study of popular mind, Le Bon observed that the complete lack of critical spirit prevents crowds from perceiving contradictions. No matter the year of the circumstances, the media and their eunuch politicians are quick to blame any surprising violence on the right-wing Nazis and of their imaginations, from Lee Harvey Oswald, communist, to Jerry Lee Lufner and James Holmes, psychopaths, to the two stabbing murders on a Portland train earlier this year committed by a Bernie Sanders supporter, whom the media to this day insists all evidence to the contrary was a Trump supporter. When a few months after the first murders by a Sanders supporter, a second Sanders supporter opened fire on congressional Republicans' baseball practice, putting GOP Republican Steve Scalise in critical condition. That political attack was simply disregarded. The media put the story of left-wing assailant James Hodgkinson in a lead casket and dropped it to the bottom of the sea. There are scores of other examples of imaginary right-wing violence invented by the media, then quietly abandoned when the facts come out. After weeks of hair-on-fire headlines, suddenly you just stop reading about Duke lacrosse rapists, homicidal maniac Officer Darren Wilson, or legions of Trump supporters ripping off Muslim women's hijabs. But I remember, here are as many as my word limit allows, maybe more. Sarah Palin, the rise of Nazism in America. During the 2008 campaign, the media were in a perpetual state of fright that racist Republican would assassinate Barack Obama. Naturally, when a local reporter claimed he'd heard someone in the crowd at a Sarah Palin rally yell, "Kill him," about Obama, the media didn't wait for more facts. The Washington Post's Dana Milbank promptly reported the reed-thin allegation, which was then repeated in hundreds of other news outlets. On CNN, David Gergen said that Palin was whipping up these crowds, creating ugly scenes with audience members yelling, "Kill him, kill him," and also claimed without evidence that they were yelling racial epithets. A CNN article on the alleged shout-out appeared under the headline, "Rage Rising on the McCain Campaign Trail." Vice Presidential candidate Joe Biden weighed in, somberly calling the alleged incident dangerous. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow railed against the quote, mere mention of killing someone at a political rally, saying it's horrific. NBC's Keith Olbermann took the gold, yammering on and on about the claim in nightly updates, culminating in one of his prissiest ever special comments, in which he demanded that John McCain suspend his campaign until, quote, it ceases to be clear and present danger to the peace of this nation. Needless to say, the Secret Service undertook a complete review. Agents listened to tapes to the event, interviewed attendees, and interrogated the boatloads of law enforcement officers spread throughout the crowd. Conclusion never happened, as even the nutty left-wing site Salon noted, if Secret Service says it doesn't think anyone shouted kill him, it's a good bet that it didn't happen. No apologies, no retractions, no memory. The Tea Party and the rise of Nazism in America. Remember when polite, hardworking Americans came together to oppose Obamacare at the Tea Party rallies in 2009 and 10? Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Representative Hoyer called the protesters un-American. The Democratic National Committee called them rabid white right-wing extremists. Senator Harry Reid called the Tea Partiers evil mongers. Jimmy Carter pronounced an overwhelming portion of them racist. ABC called them a mob. CNN called them rabble-rousing critics. Democratic Congressman Brian Baird of Washington accused Tea Partiers of using close to brown shirt tactics. The AFL-CIO called them extremist fringe, using mob rule. As Laban explained, one of the surest means of making an idea enter the mind of the crowds is to affirmatively state something, free of all reasoning and of all proof. Indeed, the more destitute of every appearance of proof and demonstration a claim is, the more weight it carries with a mob. As usual, once the dust has settled, the only violence of Tea Parties and town halls had been committed by liberals. On August 6, 2009, for example, a black Tea Partier was beaten up by Union thugs, shouting the N-word at him at a St. Louis town hall. 6 members of the Service Employees International Union were arrested. After about a month later, on September 3, 2009, 65-year-old Tea Partier Bill Rice had his finger bitten off at a healthcare rally in Thousand Oaks, California, by a lefty Obamacare supporter. But of course, this never is covered by the news. To this day, the New York Times has never mentioned either incident, so it can happily return to railing against the non-existent right-wing rage surging in the red states. The census worker and rise of Nazism in America. In the fall of 2009, the naked body of census worker Bill Sparkman was found hanging from a tree in southwestern Kentucky with the word "Fed" written across his chest. Liberal wasted no time in concluding the right-wing extremists had murdered Sparkman in a burst of anti-government hate. A census worker who hates census workers. Unlike an IRS agent, an EPA inspector, or even an agriculture inspector, a census worker can't arrest you, seize your property, or fine you hundreds of thousands of dollars. They just hand out questionnaires. No matter, the left had been waiting for right-wing violence for centuries, and finally here it was. New York Magazine ran an article about the dead census worker asking, has Nancy Pelosi's fear of political violence been realized? The Atlantic Andrew Sullivan blamed Southern populist terrorism for Sparkman's death, whipped up by GOP and its Fox and Talk News radio cohorts. But MSNBC's Rachel Maddow owned the Bill Sparkman was murdered by right-winger story. Night after night, she breathlessly reported this breaking national news. Although Rachel's main move is giggling and eye-rolling, she was all deadly earnestness when it came to the troubling story and, quote, worry that he was killed, in fact, because he was a federal employee. In case you missed the point, Maddow reminded viewers, there's a strong suspicion of government generally among people who live in that area. A month later, investigators announced that Sparkman had committed suicide in an insurance scam. Rachel left it to her guest host, Howard Dean, to break the bad news to her conspiracy-minded viewers, sparing her the humiliation. And then we never heard the story of the census worker again. A media capable of turning Tea Partiers, Palin supporters, and random insurance scam into weeks of terror at right-wing violence are not going to let a few nuts waving Nazi flags at a Unite the Rally pass without leaping at the opportunity to outlaw conservatism. Based on the media's 100-year history of fantasizing a burgeoning Nazi party in America, the rest of us would like to wait for the facts on Charlottesville. And there you go, Ann Coulter, in her new article. Donald Trump promotes pro-American tax reform in Missouri. President Trump called for a simpler, lower fare tax code on Wednesday, urging Congress to pass a bill that would help grow the American economy. And of course, Congress is not going to let him do that at the likes of John McCain and John Bolton and these kind of bums who are back. John McCain is back in D.C. Today, I'm calling on all Americans, members of Congress, Democrat, Republican, Independent, to support pro-American tax reform, he said. They have to do it. It's time. They're going to try to block it. It's always time to block whatever Trump's doing for them. The president made his remarks at Lauren Cook Company in Springfield, Missouri, which Trump noted was the birthplace of Route 66 highway, a great American icon. Trump's speech marked a new push by the administration to achieve major legislation in Congress after the bill to replace a failed Obamacare, after the bill to replace Obamacare failed in the Republican-led Senate by, of course, John Trader McCain. I don't want to be disappointed by Congress. Do you understand me? Trump said in this speech as the audience applauded and cheered. I think Congress is going to make a comeback. I hope so. Trump promised that dramatic tax reform would help create millions of jobs, bring billions of dollars back to the United States, allowing the country to rebuild communities. My administration is embracing a new economic model. It's called, very simply, the American model. He promoted a 15% business tax rate and cutting tax loopholes for wealthy corporations and special interests. We have totally surrendered our competitive edge to other countries. We are not surrendering anymore. The president also called for lower taxes for middle-class Americans. He suggested that tax reform was moral duty, calling the current system wrong for American citizens. We believe that ordinary Americans know better than Washington how to spend their own money. Get rid of that stupid deep state. Trump is trying to fight, and they're just doing everything in their power to monkey wrench anything this man does. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's time to invest in our country, to rebuild our communities, and to hire our great American workers. They will love getting up in the morning. They will love getting to their job. They will love earning a big, fat, beautiful paycheck. They will be proud again. That is the future I want for our people. And that's the future most Americans want. They want to get rid of this ridiculous deep state, which is an enemy foreign takeover party, which is ruling this country. With McCain and Bolton and Ryan, these fake neocons, allying with the Democrats, literally the neocon, Clinton, Bush, Obama, neocon cabal, warmongering cabal. These deep state operatives and their holdovers must be attacked. Trump must go on the offensive and fire them. Get rid of these colluders like Momester. Get rid of them, fire them, and clean it up. Fire all those idiots from the federal bureaucracies. Get rid of departments. Just devastate it, Trump. Go on the offensive. Stop going on the defensive. Go on the offensive. Get rid of these clear and present dangers to the freedom and sovereignty of these United States of America. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
Shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Our God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival.
Our God's not dead, he's surely alive.
He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Board this Thursday, August 31st, 2017. I'm your host, Hung Ji-Sean Moon, second king of Cheongguk. Here today, joined with Bob Exler, Reverend Bob Exler, state coordinator there in Texas. Bob joined the movement in 1972 in Amsterdam, Netherlands. There you go. He moved to New York City in 1973 and was one of the first European members to help with the Day of Hope tour. He participated in 1974 Madison Square Garden campaign and joined the 1975 Japan-Korea Yolo Island mobilization efforts, continued his journey and helped as well in the Yankee Stadium and the 1976 Washington Monument Rally. Became a carpet leader in the Bronx, went on to lead ACLC and ACC in Florida for 15 years. That is the American Clergy Leadership Conference. He worked for the True World Marine from 2004 to 2007 and works until now as the regional sales manager for a company in Houston. He's been in Houston since 2005 and been Sanctuary Church coordinator in Texas since 2014. In 2014, Houston became a battleground for religious liberty when Mayor Annise Parker, wasn't she a liberal lesbian? Mayor Annise Parker passed a controversial ordinance that would allow transgender people to use a men's or women's bathroom, depending on the gender in which they identify. This makes me nuts, okay? Every day, just nuts. There was initial outcry from many conservative groups and Christians toward the law, but the real blowback came from the mayor's demand to subpoena sermons and communications of pastors who opposed the ordinance. She was a total totalitarian. The bottom line is that Religious Liberty is opening the doors for us to meet and reach out to many good clergy who otherwise would never take the time to meet with us, said Reverend Bob Exler of ACLC Houston. Many of the pastors expressed their desire to work together all over the country. The controversy has brought the teachings of True Father, founder of ACLC, into the forefront of the fight towards religious liberty. His teachings on true family values are now being received by respected clergy. Many of the ACLC members have been busy visiting churches in Houston and have even made new connections. Bob Exler believes that this incident was a way to open doors and build bridges for the religious communities in Houston to work together towards a common goal. He was blessed in 1982 at Madison Square Garden to Sue McElhenney, who joined in 76 in Boulder, Colorado, and they have 2 sons, Christopher and Robin, both blessed under the second king. Well, Bob, welcome this morning to the King's Report, reporting out of Houston, Texas, the really center of all the news that is going on right now. Can you give us an update about Houston, some details about the floods? How is your situation there? If you have any family or relatives and or other people in Houston, let us know about that. Share with us the situation in Houston, Bob.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me at this second King Report. We went through a few devastating days here in Houston, Texas. I'm sure you all have watched the news, and it is nobody expected this. Is about in our area alone, 25 inches of water came down.
Wow!
And
parts like 2 feet of water.
Yeah. Just a few days time, it was like non-stop. And, the city of Houston grew very fast in the last, I would say, last 10 years. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. And the infrastructure is not set up to handle this type of water in such a short period of time. So the entire highways, I emailed Lourdes some pictures, completely shut down, flooded. The woodland was evacuated because Lake Como was, which is like a water reservoir, flew over. And I'm here right between northern part of Houston and Kingwood. And Kingwood is close to Lake Houston that is completely flooded. Our business is in Kingwood, so it looks like I might, for the first next weeks, might be out of work. So the devastation is not just the water, but also the financial impact, which will affect many people here. But fortunately, we were very blessed. We have a house which is very well built. We bought a model home, and
of the floods.
Yeah, and it's on an elevation, so the water reached our door, but did not go on the first floor. And his sister Yesenia was evacuated. She's right now in Dallas, staying with Kevin Berkman's family, who are really taking care of her well. But right now, there's no way for her to come back. So she's also seriously affected. There's no way for her to come back, and looks like she's going to be out of work for a few weeks. So, but altogether, we're really blessed and protected by this tremendous, I would say, biblical proportional storm. For whatever reason that happened, I always kept saying they never ever should have sold that 4,000 acre land here in Texas that Father bought. I think that was a very big mistake. Now, I'm not saying that this has anything to do with it, but the family-fed leaders made a very big mistake on not listening to Father. They never should have. Yes. They never should have sold that land. Never. And that whole. I'm sorry.
Well, it's interesting. The Texas, 2 feet of devastating floods. I've heard that this. I heard David Knight, who was talking about. He lived in Houston 35 years ago, and still 35 years ago, they had massive flood damage. That's actually quite a common occurrence in Houston to get flood. And the government there, the local government and state government could have done something about it for decades, but they're just busy manipulating people and exploiting the populace. They're not actually fixing the issues, just like the bayous in Louisiana that were flooded by Katrina. And then when you have a rainstorm like this, everything just pours into this and creates this massive bog. And you have literally the Democratic mayor of those counties telling people, don't leave your homes. Stay in your homes. The flood will pass. And now 30 people are dead because of that craziness. You have the Republican mayor was saying, the governor was saying, evacuate.
Yes. And the Obama mayor, Sylvester, told everybody to stay in Houston and not to evacuate. And I think these guys are totally out of touch with reality. They live in a bubble. And, to be honest, if I would have been the mayor of Houston, I would have told everyone to leave, everyone. I'm originally from the Netherlands, and as you may know, we have big dikes, and 1/3 of the Netherlands is below sea level. There is no hurricane was, Holland is very protected, and for some reason, these local politicians, they just don't have a brain, and that's what's really need to be changed. And Trump said that we're going to rebuild Texas as never ever before. So we're really very blessed and fortunate to have President Trump who came, and he's going to come back this weekend. So I think this is a real...
Yes, Trump came. Trump came to Houston. He tried to show solidarity. Let me show you a video. Look at this. This is a potential assassination attempt that was caught on video. While Trump's motorcade is passing, a vehicle unexpectedly drives towards Trump motorcades from the woods. It pops out of the woods. Have you seen this? As the motorcade is coming into Houston, a vehicle pops out of the woods trying to ram into the motorcade, but of course gets stuck in this gully here. And it looks like this may be a potential assassination attempt by a leftist, unhinged CNN viewer or Rachel Maddow viewer or somebody who is in some kind of Antifa supporter. Insane. While the motorcade, look at this. Here's the motorcade coming down the road right here. And as the motorcade is coming down, these are the bike, these are the police motorcycle motorcade here coming down the road, you can see. And now keep your eye right on this wood section here. They're going to pass by. Watch this. Out of the woods, literally out of the woods. Watch. And as the Cadillacs roll down with Trump in them, Secret Service. And here's the president's motorcade here. They right down here. Look at this. Watch from this side. Look at this. From the woods, right here. From the woods. Boom! A car comes out. Look at that. Trying to drive it, but it gets damaged as it hits this gully. You see that? Did you see that right there? It gets damaged and it's forced to just park there. The Secret Service and all the motorcades have already passed, and they realize the cops now start turning their cars around. This cop car here will turn around, Secret Service, and will actually start facing the unidentified driver there. But look at that. That is a vehicle attempts to ram the presidential motorcade in Springfield. I'm sorry, this was in Springfield. This was in Springfield, Missouri. But this was right after the president had visited Houston. Again, showing how much the left is whipped up to a frenzy, and how the mainstream media has created this culture of kill Trump, kill Trump. Violence for Trump is cool. Trying to assassinate Trump is you'll be heroic. Do it, do it. Come on, let's do it. Let's kill the president. Let's get rid of him. Yeah. Give us your breakdown, Bob. Why, from a spiritual and also practical political perspective, why do these leftists want to get this president killed so bad?
Just want to give you a quick situation in the Netherlands. We had Pim Fortuyn, who was killed by a radical leftist idiot, and this was actually, I would say, it was like about 10 years ago. He was telling that we need to stop the flood of the Islamics flooding into the Netherlands, because the reason why they come over there is they get free welfare, free education, free medical, and they get also free child support for every child they have. And then the Labour Party basically is the one who are catering to them, because they joined the leftist Labour Party. Yes. But the media ganged up constantly, day in, day out, and this idiot killed Pim Fortuyn. Okay, and now we have Geert Wilders. This is the new party. Actually, he became the second largest party in the Netherlands.
He almost won this time.
Yeah, second in place. There, he's constantly protected day in, day out by 5 Secret Service police, because if the Muslims in the Netherlands have a chance, they will kill them, right on the spot.
Oh yeah.
And this is happening in the United States right now because of the same left-wing media, the CNN, the New York Times, who are supposed to same media which went after Father. They, when we started to support Richard Nixon in the 70s, because Richard Nixon was the one who was going to protect South Korea. And
and that's what's coming out. Nixon, the president of peace, he wanted to stop the wars. He wanted to pull out of Americans dying in Vietnam, etc. He was the president of peace, and the bankers didn't want that. The warmongers didn't want that. They wanted him to continue to wage war and continue to make money. That's now all coming out. And Father was defending Nixon, who was actually a peacemaker.
This guy was in the deep state, the Pentagon, leaked the Pentagon Papers, which was devastating to the New York Times, and that pretty much was the end of the Vietnam War. And so this whole Providence went into, really down the cliff. And then, Jimmy Carter came in. He's the one who, together with Washington Post and New York Times, geared up to put Father, out of the country. And they succeeded with the Justice Department to put Father into Danbury. And it's quite interesting that right around that time, Father started the Washington Times, which is one of the most well-known papers in the United States and around the world. So it's very interesting how this whole thing is working out. And it's about 40 years, 1976, 2016, that's 40 years that President Trump was elected. But we now finally have a president who I'm sure Father from Spirit World must have been right behind that. Because November 8th, believe it or not, this was a miracle. And the day after, she surrendered in the Grand Ballroom. Hillary Clinton surrendered in the same place where two fathers spoke, about how important we need to support family values, conservative values. So this is altogether, it's like God has been working and is working right now. So it's a miracle that all these things are coming together with Eric Trump meeting the second king, the scorecard providence, which affected all the swing states. We were able to here promote the scorecard via social media, and the Tea Party here copied the scorecard all over their internet, over Facebook and Twitter. So not just the flyers we gave out, but also the scorecard over social media. And that's the point I'm trying to make today, is that we have to utilize social media 100-fold, also to spread and build, the second king sanctuary movement in the United States, because the family vet fell asleep. They were in bed with Obama. And I've been speaking out against that year after year, because I worked in Europe with VLC and Causa. I was there in Yodo Island fighting in Seoul, because Kim Il-sung wanted to invade South Korea in 1975. So I've been fighting together with Father, day in, day out. And that's why one of the reasons why I'm supporting the Victorious Cain and Abel. I want to let everybody know in the United States and around the world why I'm supporting Second King, because Second King stood up for President Trump. And God bless you. God's hand is over you. Jesus is over you. And the highest spirit world is you. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, God
bless you, brother. I mean, we're standing with the patriots and heroes, and we're just normal sons that just cannot sell out on their father and cannot sell out on honor. And we won't be bought off by billions of dollars being waved in our face as if we're some kind of beasts or animals. We have something greater than that, which is honor, a relationship with God, and a love for our Father, which transcends all the pettiness and transcends all the corruption that they continue to collude with, and all the evil that they continue to perpetuate, including heresy, because the love of God and the love of our neighbor, the protection of humanity and civilization and real God-centered Chaniyagu is what allows us to get beyond all that. And of course, the reality is Trump is standing on the able side. He's standing on the macrocosmic level, trying to fight this fight at the macrocosm. And God has already connected both the providence of the micro and the macro. It's absolutely incredible. And 923 is coming up. 923 coming up. The signs of the heavens are coming up. the woman who is clothed in the sun, the moon at her feet, the 12-star crown, you know, with the constellations now happening in the signs in the sky. It's interesting. Mrs. Kong it's very clear now that she is the woman of Revelation 12. And interestingly, only every 39 years does it happen, but right after 923, my birthday falls right after that in 925 and 926, lunar and solar. Dates actually almost come together, and that never happens. They're always about a month apart. First time in my life that's ever happened that my birthdays, lunar and solar, are coming that close right after the signs in the heavens at 923. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us with more with Bob Exler on the King's Report.
Hi guys, I'm down here at the range today. I just learned a new technique from the father of the 44 Magnum, Elmer Keith, which is called shooting out of the notch, which allows you to make really long distance shots and still have an extremely precise sight picture. So I brought my CW9 car down, and with this little gun, we're gonna shoot this little munchkin at 200 yards up in the hills, applying this technique, and hopefully we'll make the shot. To apply this technique, instead of using the blade of the front sight lined up with the top of the rear sight, I'm going to take the dot of the front sight and raise it up so that it's out of the notch, but I'm still going to keep the front sight on my target. Bringing that front sight up like that is going to compensate for the bullet drop over that excessively long distance with just this little gun. So if applied right, we should be making contact. Let's see how it goes. I saw this shot, so I'm a little bit out of breath because you gotta run to make sure that is what I thought it was, and it was. So while making this shot, from that distance with these white dot sights, it literally would cover the entire target. You couldn't see what you were shooting. So using the Elmer Keith technique, you were able to raise it out of the back notch, I can't breathe, out of the back notch, allowing you to keep your accuracy, aim, and also still see the target, which is key because it was a hard shot, not gonna lie. But yeah, it went great, and Elmer knows what he's talking about. And for such a small gun to be able to take that hit, I'm very impressed with this. All right, guys, be sure to like and share, and I'll see you out on the range.
That was awesome. Hey, can I try that one? Yeah, let's do it with the 380. Does everybody have eyes and ears?
We are back. Welcome back this Thursday, August 31st, 2017. Second King reporting here from Cheonggyegung Palace, joined with Bob Exler on the third hour. And we are looking at this CNN video. Let's take a look at this clip from CNN covering the Hurricane Harvey's victims. And this video showing the public's distrust of the corporate mainstream propaganda press communist news network. Let's take a look at this clip.
So fake. Let me introduce you to Danielle here. Danielle, you just arrived. Share with us how you were rescued.
Some guys had called our phone and asked us where we were. We was waiting for the police for like 36 hours and they never came. And we was waiting at the home. We did the white flags and everything and nobody came. But then somebody had called the phone after we decided to leave the house, and we had walked to the gas station with the kids, and then they had called and came and picked us up. But we had been there like 5 days with no food, and no lights and nobody came, like nobody came.
Now you're with your children. We've heard of stories of mothers trying to save their children from the rushing waters. Can you tell us how that was?
4 feet of water to go get them food on the first day. Yeah, that's a lot of shit. But y'all sit here, y'all trying to interview people during their worst times. Like, that's not the smartest thing to do. Like, people are really breaking down and y'all sitting here with cameras and microphones trying to ask us what the fuck is wrong with us.
I'm so
and
sorry.
you're really trying to understand with the microphone still in my face, with me shivering cold, with my kids wet, and you still putting the microphone in my face.
Sorry.
Flores,
there you go. See the woman?
Like you've got a very upset family there.
Very. There is the fake news media getting called out for them again trying to exploit this tragedy, and of course the fact that they were on the same side as this governor telling people to stay put and drown. Stay put and die. Stay put and drown because your loving Democratic and Rhino Republican politicians told you to do so. Obey the federal orders because Donald Trump is a white supremacist and he's a Nazi and Nazism is on the rise and everybody who's white is a racist and wants to kill you, okay? Obey the Communist News Network. Let them stick microphones in your face and exploit these poor victims of the flood, even though they were told to stay in their houses, totally flooded out, completely soaking wet, lucky to be alive, and the microphone is there and the reporters are there trying to exploit their tragedy. Just ridiculous. So absurd to see that. Bob, what's your feeling on the ground there in Houston? What is there? Are the Houstonians, are they awake? Are they red-pilled? Are they aware of the mainstream media's collusion with the corrupt state, the deep state? Are they aware of the liberal lunatics' agenda to sexualize our children, allow pedophilia, legalize pedophilia, allow transgender chaos, mental instability, to make children confused so they never can rise up and become the God-given people, God-blessed people that they should be? What is the atmosphere in Houston?
Okay, now, first of all, I want to say the city of Houston is extremely liberal. The same for Austin. Those are all Obama countries. You have these liberal Congress lady, Sheila Lee Jackson, and then this other guy, Al Green, who is calling for impeachment of Trump. But outside that city of Houston, if you go into Harris County and Montgomery County, all the counties around Houston, all these people are Trump. Actually, they are, to be honest, they were Ted Cruz, but they switched to President Trump when he won the general election. So, but Texas is a very able type state. There is every street corner you will find a church, and I think that for too long the whole city of Texas, Houston, but also state of Texas, has not been on the radar screen by our movement. There are many good people here. And that's why I said earlier, we never ever should have sold that 4,000 acres. Father bought. I found out that actually they are now found oil under that land. So, but the people are very able type. You have here the largest Baptist church in the United States, Dr. Ed Young, which we work with Dr. Ed Young to overturn this transgender issue. I'm very frustrated with Joel Osteen. Joel has one of the largest churches in the United States, and he is catering to the gay community. And he did not open the doors of his former Compaq Center until this news came out in the New York Post and other papers. Then he finally gave in, but he didn't open his stadium. He only opened parts to serve the food. So I think Joel Osteen is going to get a major flashback.
Prosperity, gospel, heresy, preaching, glitterbug, preacher. Yep.
It's the Diet Coke Christianity.
Diet Coke. There you go. Diet Coke.
Yeah. Actually, it's a zero Coke Christianity.
Believe in Jesus and you'll get rich.
Yeah, but besides that, there are very good Christian spirituals, very good here, and they absolutely support family values. They, let's not forget Alex Jones is from Dallas, Texas. Let's not forget that.
Yes.
Yeah. Ted Cruz, very righteous man. I think he should be elected to Supreme Court. So, you have a very able type, the governor, governor of Texas. Right away, get rid of those sanctuary cities because they are a haven for the criminals. All these illegal criminals, they come over here, and now this liberal judge overturned this. It's crazy. It's crazy. And that's why the whole judicial system needs a big overhaul. There's a lot of gays who are judges, so it has to be overhauled. And the Washington Times need to be much more aggressive. They're way too soft. I don't know why they're so soft. They need to be, it's unbelievable.
Well, they're in the hands of heretics.
It's crazy. Yeah.
That's what happened. It's so sad because they've lost total. They've lost their whole standing because they have betrayed the King of Kings. They have betrayed God. And they have separated themselves and joined the forces of Satan for political power and prestige. And when you do that, it never turns out well. It only becomes worse. And they become slaves to that machine. The very ones that they thought they could collude with and become prosperous also off of, they end up becoming the slave, get exploited, and they end up getting decapitated by the very criminals that they thought they could use to get power.
Yeah.
There's no honor in a den of thieves.
Yeah, I want to quickly say something about my supplies here, which you have mentioned before. I had.
Yes, okay. You were prepared.
Yeah. We had peanut butter.
There you go.
Corned beef. This is fantastic. In time of a crisis, corned beef.
Yes.
We have loaded up on batteries.
There you go.
You need. This is all very critical. Candles. Water. We had 10 cases of water. We bought a generator because our electricity went out. So the second king is talking about being prepared for for this type of ordeal or tribulation. And I think for all blessed central families around the world, get ready. Also this my dog loves this. This is I can show you. It's a little wiener. I give it to him right now. My little shit. Yeah, my schnitzel. He lost this.
He don't want it. He's like, it's too early in the morning.
so what I'm trying to say, we packed enough for the next thing I'm going to do is buy a rubber boat, and I'm also have to order one of your, how you call those again? the car arms, just in case.
Right. That's right. Defense is very important in a grid down scenario. But you have a real survival situation on your hands in Houston. My goodness, the whole city completely flooded, and people who are making fun of people who are actually preparing, who have water and generators and things like that, just being made fun of all the time. But when a disaster strikes like that, and it doesn't even have to be a terrorist attack, it can just be a natural disaster. People realize, wow, like electricity goes away, and it's like, whoa, you can't do anything. You can't cook, you can't clean, you can't do anything. You don't have running water, which works off of the electricity. Yeah. And so you have all sorts of problems that happen when grids go down.
Absolutely.
And, especially in the mid-trib period now coming up, we know that it's only going to get worse. It is never bad to be prepared. When is it bad to be prepared? In the worst case scenario, let's say best case scenario, nothing happens, which is not the case. But let's say nothing happens, you can still eat your food. You can still drink your water. All you have to do is, and it doesn't have to break the bank. Every time you go shopping, you can buy some storage supplies. You can even put it as 1 or 2 item storage supply that you do every time you go shopping. So it's just an extra $5 or an extra $3.75 every time you go, but then it adds up over time. And then you can be a blessing to others, and God can use you in a time of need because you have prepared for the storm. You have been wise and can see the danger ahead, like Proverbs says, and prepare, as opposed to the foolish that stand idly by and do not prepare. Right? And being prepared in these tribulation times is so important, isn't it, Bob? That people are prepared spiritually, mentally, physically.
And if you can buy, I just bought a piece of land in Shepherd, Texas. which I'm going to use for a sanctuary headquarters for Texas. So I can start to be completely off the grid, solar panels, and I'm going to put in a well and grow, all the vegetables and produce. So in case of emergency, I can jump in my pickup truck, and we can go hunting. It's close to Lake Livingston, and I will text you the pictures and everything. It's great. We're going to go fishing and hunting, and we, whatever the second king is saying. I take it very serious. I mean, I want to be a copy of the second king. Let me put it that way, because Father anointed and appointed him 3 times. 3 times. When Father does it 3 times, it is no, you cannot dispute that. Anyone is saying, like Mike Jenkins saying, oh, it was conditional and he doesn't know the divine principle. Mike Jenkins is telling me this. I said, Mike, where do you get this from, man? I've been working with Mike Jenkins for 10 years. So I'm sorry, but I mean, he's gone. He's gone. I mean, go back and sell, CNC machines somewhere else, but stop fooling West Central families, for heaven's sake. And then he's saying he might sell East Garden. Shame on him. Touching East Garden would be an historical mistake. We would have a hurricane the size of half the United States if you do that. So
you can see that's what happens when you sell it to Satan. Basically, total loss of connection with God, providence. You have just self-serving prostitutes that are there to collude, to steal money. And of course, it never turns out good for them. They're already all fired. We had even just a small group of sanctuary supporters that went out to protest the Han Mother and her heresy at Madison Square Garden. On their own volition, they went there. And by that condition, the satanic realm, just by that Abel-type condition, God-centered condition, already the whole leadership has been fired, has been removed. And they don't even realize, but they are now being punished from the micro to the macro because what the Han Mother has done. And we warned her that this would happen because she was a key providential figure. And that kind of cataclysmic, heretical decision to destroy the King of Kings' legacy, to destroy his scripture, his word, to destroy his living connection to the future of humanity, to destroy and try to eradicate his kingship. All this would prove to be a curse to humanity. And of course, Asia has collapsed into complete, dangerous nuclear World War III, on the verge of World War III disaster. And of course, we are on the tipping point of an economic worldwide crash. At the same time, we're in political chaos in the Middle East and in the United States, as McMaster now wants to pour in 600,000 more refugees into the United States to implode it like Europe. Unbelievable. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us on the King's Report.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. This Thursday, August 31st, 2017. I'm your host, Hong Dishon Moon, the second king of Cheongguk, here with Bob Exler out of Houston, Texas. And we've been talking about being prepared and to be ready for when disaster strikes, because you never know when it will strike. And imagine if people in Houston had a bug out location. This is a case, okay, in Houston, Texas, where you flooded out, where you need to bug out. You cannot stay in your own home. You can't bug in. You have to bug out. And you have to have a separate location that is outside of that threat zone, which will then provide your family safe haven and the community safe haven. Imagine, Bob, if more people were prepared in Houston and they had a bug out location.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is also what Second King has been talking about, is we need to get prepared. You know, we need to be off the grid. And America is such a big country, so it's a not a big deal to find an acre, half an acre, and you know, you can build. You could go to YouTube and find great videos to build your own house in no time.
Oh my goodness, that's so. Did you see some of these tiny homes? They're amazing, amazing.
Yeah, you know, and then I'm growing the Royal Empress tree, which is I will show you maybe later. It's the most beautiful, fastest growing tree in the United States. You know, so I'm learning a lot. I'm going to put in a nice fish, you know, the bigger goldfish. So I'm going to create same like the Second King is doing. You know, beautiful garden, beautiful nature. We need to create our own kingdom of heaven right around us.
Yes,
right around us.
That's the kingship mentality, isn't it? Mentality, royal mentality.
Yeah. I'm going to sit to Joel Osteen every Sunday and then see him getting filthy rich. You know, I'm going to build my own kingdom. You know,
that's right.
You know.
Amen. That's right. And that's why we're prepared. We don't know what God starts building the kingdom of Cheongguk, the kingdom of God and heaven on earth. For God's kingdom has to come. Satan's kingdoms are going to be vanquished. There is a tribulation period of 3.5 years where there is a tribulation where Satan is fighting back. And you can see it. You can see with escalation. Now North Korea is shooting missiles, ICBM missiles over Japan. I mean, serious World War III threats. Serious economic crisis right over the horizon. I mean, the top economic analysts, Peter Schiff, Harry Dent, people who've predicted every single economic bubble, you know, top investors like Jim Rogers, saying economic collapse is imminent. Ron Paul, I mean, just top level economic experts showing very clearly that the demographics show that the bubble is coming. There is an economic collapse coming. And so we have to be in a kingship mentality. We can't just be collecting paper as money. We have to be thinking like a king. Assets, land, gold, silver, human networks, community, you know, weapons to defend your sovereignty. Defend your sovereignty. House, skills like carpentry and, you know, organic food farming. All these are real assets, Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there is, you know, hydroponics is one of the, actually I sold a two-wheeled marine boat to a guy in Florida who does hydroponic systems. And he showed me how.
That's so exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, he bought a two-wheeled marine boat for me. It was actually the last boat before Preston shut down that place, which I think is a shame. You know, because we could have used some two-wheeled marine boats, you know, the last few days.
Oh, yeah, you could have
definitely used them. But this Preston just shut down this place Father loved so much. You know, it is also totally crazy, in my opinion.
It is true.
But this guy bought a two-wheeled marine boat from us, the TT 288, and he showed me his hydroponic system, and you can grow strawberries, lettuce, you know, it's everything, amazing. And it's incredible. It's incredible. And we as sanctuarians and blessed-centered families, we need to utilize this technology. You know,
I mean, your father was on the cutting edge. We were doing fish farming in South America with hydroponics and aquaponics. I mean, and everyone was thinking father was crazy. What is he doing? You know, we're living in peace. They didn't realize he was creating the peace. He was creating the age of the blessing. But at some point, that could be taken away, and the people would have to rely on the skills that father gave us. But so many of us didn't really inherit those skills, and we bitched and complained about it and said, why is he making us do the thing? We just want to live our life. We just want to do our thing. We just want to become liberal lunatics. And then our kids got swept up into sexcapades. They got sucked up in the debt culture. They got sucked up in liberal lunatic culture. They got brainwashed. They basically left the church. They turn their back on God. And then, of course, you have the Han Mother coming out with more radical, leftist feminazism, which then, of course, further destroys marriages, further destroys spouses, further makes women even more arrogant, and, of course, men to be slaves. And it does not allow the actual structure and prosperity and blessing that God intended for his people to be done. And it's only, those under True Father's authority that are actually thinking about these issues and are standing in providence to actualize what Father, the heritage and culture he gave us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our Father laid out everything, and he gave us the word, the divine principle, the Jung-Ju-Guk. He gave it, which they never should have changed. It was another stupid mistake. You never touch the word from the Lord of Second Advent. You don't even touch it. Don't even think about it. Where are they where in the world are they going to change this? In the Netherlands, they threw 400 books in the dumpster. 400 Jung-Ju-Guk, original Jung-Ju-Guk in the dumpster.
Oh my
because
God, wow.
in the Netherlands. Yeah, I was lucky to have one, which is one West couple who translated it. They gave me one when I visited Netherlands a few months ago. But they threw it in a dumpster because some Korean leader is telling them to get rid of it. What a shame! What a shame! This is the country of the pedophiles, and I'm ashamed of being Dutch, and that's why I'm fighting, day and night, for this great nation of America, to revive this nation, and that's why I supported President Trump, Mike Pence, another great vice president, although he needs to kind of. But anyway, the point is that we need to be aligned with Father, no matter what. Like I said, we line our car, we do the balance and rotation. Every day we need to be aligned by studying the original Jung-Ju-Guk, original Father said this is the word he gave. He said it in East Garden many, many times. And
yes, without Christ we are nothing. Without Christ we are nothing.
Absolutely. And, I go here to these Christian churches, they study the Bible in and out every 3 hours on Wednesday. And on every day they have beautiful, thick Bibles. We have to, be better than these Christians. And besides that, what, the pastors are saying here, many of you unificationists don't even know the Bible.
Oh, many of you just hate Jesus. They're like a lunatic cult. You can say the name of Jesus, they think you're some kind of wacky, backwards, medieval person.
That's why Jesse Edwards, he should have stayed with the second king. Jesse is the one who introduced me to Sanctuary, and he came over many times here. And Jesse made a big mistake to give in to the golden coins. Bishop Edwards.
That situation.
We have Bishop Atchison right here, one of the top guys at the Pentecostal movement in the United States, who came to see Father in East Garden. And he spoke very highly about Father. And he also doesn't understand what happened to Jesse. And this is why Adam has to be in a position, a vertical position, and cannot give in to Eve. That's Father made it very clear. That's why, the Lord of Second Advent wasn't a woman, it was a man. And we have to keep that vertical connection. If we stop doing that, then it's all gone. And in my opinion, is one of the reasons why we had this mess in North Korea. This whole mess started right.
God is a father.
Yeah,
God is a father.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing we can learn from the North Koreans, they understand about the importance about lineage. They understand the importance, but unfortunately, it's on the wrong side. Yeah, but it's all lineage to the sons.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And that battle of lineage and lineage is now here on the front of the micro and macro. Bob, so great to hear from you, brothers. Great to see an amazing patriot down there in Houston, a man of God, and he who is standing with President Trump and the different clergy down there to try to revive Houston. But at the same time, staying in the providence of God, preparing himself, preparing his family and community to be used by God in any circumstance. We know we're in the mid-trib situation period. We know that it's going to get worse, so it doesn't hurt to be prepared to be used by God. Thank you, Bob, for joining us today on the King's Report. Great to see you. Great to have you. Also, everybody else, thanks for joining us this morning for our broadcast. Hey, there's a puppy saying bye-bye to everybody. There we go. You got to bring the puppy up next time when you're up here, Bob. We'd love to see you and your puppy as well. Everybody stay healthy, stay strong. Pray for Houston. Send reputable and good organizations down there support. If you know people down there, if you know them personally, that's even better, to help them with a GoFundMe or things like that. That's even better, instead of giving to these big conglomerate organizations which you don't know where your money's going. But Houston, please pray for Houston. We need to pray for Korea, for East Asia. Right now, we have many, many sanctuarians who are, of course, preparing there, but they know that the situation is getting worse. We have economic collapse coming on the horizon. We must begin to get ready. It is not a time to be playing around. We'll see you tomorrow, Friday, 5 a.m. sharp on the King's Report. God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.